There are water bottles on the armchair.
That's
Good to know.
that's stock water. No, allow me.
That water bottle?
It's
That
it's
one.
the sound. It's
Yeah. Where's Frankie? Frankie, you can remix that,
We
right?
can verify that
That
what
was
all
a water
production
bottle.
sounds like.
Exactly. All right. Well, let me just tell you who all is up here because it's a pretty damn impressive group.
Oh, it is a very impressive group.
Right.
Thought we were the guy with the
Does this count as a group?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we have a quorum.
Wait, is that our?
That's
Are we out to the world right now?
Say hello to the interwebs, everybody. They
Yeah.
can see you, and they can see us. It's 360. Say hello to the Vero group out there.
Cool.
Wow, that's awesome.
Z, is this my good side?
Does the 360 make me look fat? Don't answer.
Maybe. We're like super small so far.
It's better.
All right, go ahead.
This guy needs no introduction. It's actually a cliche, but it's true. He is an ArtCenter alumnus, and the word visionary is bandied about a lot. But in this case, we're going with it because he is a visionary filmmaker
Rude.
and a writer and a producer. And a general mensch, and I can be indiscreet. We have a mutual friend who is a studio head and once said, I'm not supposed to have favorites, but Zack and Debbie, you're my favorites. I'll tell you
Studio
later.
head.
A studio head, yeah. Who you're still speaking to. So anyway, and thank you, Zack. This is all him. So thanks for this. As you can see, you probably realize after sitting in those chairs why we need this renovated.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Everybody together. Oi, my back. Next on our
I'm
list.
adding that 3-hour cut of Watchmen tomorrow.
Bring in a whoopee cushion. Dylan Clark, right here, Dylan was the Universal exec at the time. He greenlit this bad boy, which is impressive given the fact that this was a first-time film director, feature director. And Dylan is founder and CEO of Dylan Clark Productions, and he has done a number of movies that I really like: Rise of the Planet of the Apes, Oblivion, War for the Planet of the Apes, and we're going to ask him. I could go on and on, but I'm not. We're going to ask him a little bit about the whole greenlight process. So, next, going this way, we have Frankie Netanyahu, who is the supervising sound mixer, and you got to experience that tonight, that's for sure. But he has also done movies, little movies, like The Revenant, Watchmen, which you'll hear and see tomorrow, The Fugitive, Birdman, and many, many others. This guy has been nominated for 9 Oscars. So, there you go. And it's,
Staging tonight. 0 for 9.
there you go. 10's the charm, man. 10's the charm. It's really gauche to like brag on your own kids, but his daughter, Liana, is one of our film students who we think is awesome, and she's here tonight. So if you hear anybody heckling, chances are it'll be her.
She's down next to my sister, by the way.
Exactly. There we go. And then Jake Weber, who you might all recognize from this very movie. And this guy, he works a lot because he's so good. He works in film, theater, television. He was in Meet Joe Black, written by one of our instructors, U571. He worked on one of our alums, Tarsem Singh's The Cell. He worked on Born of the 4th of July. You've also seen him on TV a lot, American Gothic, Medium, Homeland, many, many more. And he is Michael from Dawn of the Dead. And I just want to mention, at around 9:30, he's got a book. So when he gets up and drops the mic, it's not because he doesn't love us. It's he has a prior engagement. So we're going to ask him some questions first. So welcome, everybody. So I'm going to do a lightning round of questions for everybody.
Sorry.
No, go ahead, because you're actually way more
I
interested
didn't
than me.
say, I wasn't saying that.
Lightning round, and then we're going to open it up to you guys. Now go.
Oh yeah, sorry. I use my microphone?
Yes, you should.
Yes, please. Yeah.
Use your inside voice, Zach.
Yeah, it's better not to yell. Okay, first of all, before we get started, I'm actually not being loud. This is a microphone. I can't wait for you to speak into one and see how loud it sounds. I just wanted to say, first of all, thanks to Vero for hosting this amazing event, for taking us out to the World Wide Webs with this incredible, I have no idea technologically how this is done, but look at that looks like, in Star Wars, like one of the remotes that they play. Yeah. That's cool. That's anyway. So amazing. Shout out also to all the amazing fans that are out there watching, and the amazing fans that came all the way from all the far reaches of the earth to come to this event. I think you guys are beyond amazing, and it's crazy, and I can't thank you guys enough. It's just too much. It's really, it's super humbling, and you guys are too cool. So thank you. So that's a big thank you to everyone, and whoever's watching. Hopefully you're enjoying this. I have no idea. Okay, so yeah.
Cool. All right, so
Now we can answer some questions from the interweb.
please do. So we're all here to watch a director's cut. So I'm going to ask you the same question all 3 nights because I think it's really relevant, is in terms of what you wanted to accomplish with this versus what was released. Tell us a little bit about what you went for.
Yeah. Well, I guess, okay, so I have always been, I guess, sort of being when I was in film school and in the early 90s and late 80s, there were this sort of idea of a director's cut on sort of VHS or it literally ended up, I remember I bought a Laserdisc player. Yeah, sweet. The Criterion Laserdiscs were that was it. This is the coolest, possibly highest quality thing that exists. That's what I thought. But there was that idea of the director's cut is going to come out on, this Laserdisc, and that's cool. And I thought, so I had that in my mind as a possibility. So when we were working, and of course, look, from a marketing standpoint, it's kind of cool because and we'll let Dylan speak to this because they have a whole plan, and they know that I'm gonna what they do is they give me okay, do whatever you want, and then you do it, and then they go, oh, that's cool, we're gonna cut that out, and then they say, but you can put it on DVD, and we'll call it another thing, and then we could sell 2 DVDs instead of 1, which is cool for me because I think I'm getting one over on them, and they get one over on me, so it works out.
I'm pretty sure nobody ever said do what you want.
No, that's true. No one ever said that. It was sort of implied in their eyes.
Maybe in my eyes.
It was there was some possible nodding, but I don't know. Yeah.
No means yes, Mr. Director.
No, I do remember though that when we were shooting the movie, Matt Leonetti, remember Matt was the DP, and Matt said to me, we were about 3/4 of the way through the movie shooting, and he took me aside and he's like, you know what, Zach, I got to be honest, you're being way too nice to the studio. And I was like, what? I thought they were the guys you're supposed to be nice to because they could fire you. He goes, well, the problem is right now, you've shot enough of the movie that they don't know what you did, so they could not possibly put it together without you. So you kind of can.
Matt Leonetti did not work ever again.
Yeah, well, I know. He was like, trust me, kid, you can just do whatever you want. It's fine. Fuck 'em. You can.
He's my neighbor.
You can go over schedule. It doesn't matter now. They can't stop you. And I was like, what? That's a thing? He goes, yeah, it's kind of a thing. He goes, to spend my, I've done 800 movies. This is the point where the director can do whatever he wants. So, of course, I didn't do whatever I wanted, but I started to feel a little more confident, I would say, based on that. Because before that, he just made me fear constantly, so it was a different. No, he didn't. The other guys did. Other people.
I feel attacked.
Say it right in front of you. You're in the room.
Let's go to Jake before he leaves because
Yeah, that's right, Jake.
let's get to some real talent.
All right, yeah. So Jake, Actually,
See?
Jake, I am going to ask you a question because you had these little snippets of stuff to work with. When we meet Michael, there's no exposition. You're just standing there, shooting at Ving Rhames, and then you have these little brushstrokes of character. And by the end of the movie, you've kind of fleshed him out, and he's like this everyman hero, and we love him and everything. So you're coming to this in the script, and you're working with Zack. How did you get there? Because it was pretty great.
Whoa,
He needs his microphone.
hold on.
Yeah, this is problematic.
All right. Well, that's nice of you to say that.
I call him like I see him.
But there certainly was no any kind of grand plan. It was just, it was scripted, and we just did the moments, and I don't, but it's nice that, he's just a regular guy. He's just not a tough guy. He's just a regular guy, I guess.
Yeah, because it's a lot different than your average action movie where the hero he was in special forces and he knows how to do this stuff, and your character slowly steps up to the plate.
Well, that's how it was written, Mr. Gunn, and conceived by Zack, and they cast a pretty recessive guy.
I have some genes like that, yeah.
And yeah, that's it.
So, there you go. And he's modest, too. And what can I tell you? All right, so Dylan.
Well, let me just pump him up a little bit. We didn't want to cast, we talked a lot about this with Zack, of course, Eric Newman, and Mark Abraham, the producers. And Zack wanted to find real people. And Sarah Polley, I think, grounded the movie right out of the gate, because we could have gone a different direction. In studios in the early 2000s we were definitely pushing the limits on credibility, meaning we would cast these Amazon people to play nurses and things like that. And we found Sarah Polley, who was a quality actor, and then we had to find the kind of matching counterpart. And Jake had been doing really interesting work. The HBO show, I remember, was really good, and lo and behold, Zack said, "This is the guy," and we all were like, "Yeah, let's do that." And I remember my bosses going, "He's not an action star. You said this was going to be an action movie."
Yeah, we said a lot of things. There's that line where he says, "TV says a lot of stuff that isn't true." And I always thought that was very poignant for this movie.
When I first read for the part, Ty Burrell and I were in the same waiting room, waiting to go in.
That was in New York, right?
In New York.
Yeah, yeah.
And that was the first time I met you. And then you guys switched us up. So you sent us out in the waiting room, and then I read, because he was supposed to read for Michael, and I was reading for his part. And then you guys switched us up, and then I don't know when he was cast. I was cast like towards the end after you'd been through a few options.
I don't remember that part. But
Yes, you do.
I do remember.
Because the whole time you were pulling for me. That's what I heard from Middleton.
I just was like, no, that's the guy. They might have said they might have had other ideas, but I was like, no, that's it. That's gonna be fine. He was funny. He was like, I never cast a movie before. I just was like, oh, this is fun. Like, these actors come in and they just like say the words, and some of them like are the guy that you think is in the movie. And then you say, yeah, I want that guy to do it. And they're like, it's more complicated than that. And I was like,
Now the executive finds out. So Frankie, I got a question for you.
actually works.
About sound, better late than never. So there's like a famous story about how the sound guys for Psycho bought every melon in the grocery store so they could stab it and find out which one sounded the most like somebody gently getting stabbed. So everybody likes to know the magic of what you guys do. Tell us a little bit about some of the sound stuff you used, and then how you built this whole sound universe in this movie. So
Yeah, that's our code. Z and I have a thing that's called "Use Sound as a Weapon." So as you heard tonight, I think we accomplished that.
Yeah, my ears hurt.
Tomorrow you want to sit in the back's premium. There's several ways that the soundtrack's built, minus the music, obviously. We get from production, we get the actor's dialogue, either it's boom or lav. That comes with its own set of challenges. The ambience of the locations could be, noise floor is equal to the volume of the dialogue. itself. So we have to kind of comb through that material, try to keep as much as possible without sounding artificial. We go through an ADR process, which is bringing the actors in to reread the lines if its story needs to be clarified or we have technical issues. And from that, everything is built either from field recordings and or a library. So at Universal, Scott Hecker is not here tonight, but he's our supervising sound editor. And he's oversees the collection of the sounds, actually bringing the sounds to the stage for re-recording mixers like myself. This one was a little bit different than most because he actually had to bring in ADR talent, actors, to come in and do the vocal performances of the zombies. So they're actually human to start, and then offset with very speed and or animals, so on and so forth. So this movie was a little more complex in that regard. It was more than just gunshots, cars, explosions, etc. Even though I know you love that.
Don't not do that.
So that was the complex part of the collection of sounds. We do what's called a temp dub, which we want to put a quick soundtrack together, borrowing music from other films, cleaning up dialogue quickly, adding some of the rudimentary sounds to the movie, and get it in front of an audience, the demographic in which the studio is marketing to. So this is 18 to 25-year-olds or something like that was the prime spot. And we get back numbers, the likes, dislikes, and so on and so forth. Picture changes, all these little nuances, things happen.
He knows more about this movie than I don't know why. This is amazing. Keep going. Don't stop. I'm learning too.
Right. So that's the reason why I'm saying this is the first time I get to see the film. So we're going through the film, reel one, and the clock goes to a slow-mo and flips the time, and it's a suspension of time, but sonically it's really big because it's a close-up. So that was one of those, right away, it wasn't just a zombie movie. It was Zack's zombie movie. And the cinematic component through the movie is what makes it special, sonically. We get to match the picture and then, manipulate the audience.
You really brought it home with that.
All right, that's great, guys. Thanks for coming out.
Can I go? That's a tough act to follow. However,
That's awesome. I do remember there's a couple. I do remember that, also there's this. The studio was like, could there be more scares in the movie?
It's also the studio. You can point to.
I know, but at the time I didn't know that. So they were like, could there be more scares? And so I said, yeah, we can. Is there any way we can make? There's a cut where Ving Rhames they're sitting at the fountain,
Oh, God,
and
I didn't like it.
and he loads the gun, and they're like, hey, what if that was super loud and it kind of
Oh,
So if you notice, I feel like there are a few more kind of loud moments in the movie that would kind of that I was trying to satisfy this
there was a lot of, you could see the studio in this movie. You saw a first-time director with just the studio freaking out a little bit, and that jump sound scare was.
Because I did get a note of we want more jumps in the movie, and I was like, jump? What does that even mean? I don't know what jumps.
We want to scare you artificially.
Yeah, that would have been better, I think. By the way, I would have respected that.
That wasn't my note, but I had to bring the note.
Jumps. So jumps. So sound. We had to use sound as jumps.
Sound as a weapon.
Yeah.
I like that. We're stealing it. Which leads me to a question for Dylan. So it's 2000 whatever. This movie is in active development. What was it about Zack and his take and him in the room that made you guys greenlight a first-time feature director?
It was, as I remember, it was hard getting, once we got to Zack, it was easy. There was, we went through a bunch of other directors, I think, that had made movies not well. And we're like, that guy has at least made a movie, and then we're like, yeah, but those are bad movies.
Yeah, but he's made movies.
He's made 3 of them, 3 bad movies. He knows what he's doing. Oh, good, yes.
He's consistent.
He's consistent, he knows what he's doing.
Wasn't it the guy?
Oh, we're not gonna name names.
Okay, sorry.
God, it's terrible.
But there was someone that was.
Everybody can look it up on the interweb.
Oh, it was on the internet? There
I'm
was
sure it
someone
is.
that was supposed to do the movie. And
You know, it's good.
He had to do another movie.
No, the good story was the script. Back in this day, Ain't It Cool News was very.
It was a huge
important
deal.
website. Very
Huge deal.
And Harry Knowles and his partner, sometimes Roger Avery, who was also a writer,
Yeah.
wrote a Quentin Tarantino movie.
And I think he went to ArtCenter College of Design.
And he wanted to. They got the script and they had heard that we were doing running zombies, which they lit into us, and then the internet went, these assholes. Am I allowed to say that? Sorry, internet.
The internet's heard word.
Zombies don't run. The rigor mortis, all this, but Roger came in and had a meeting with Eric Newman, who's the producer and one of my childhood friends, and he said, I read the script, it's great, and then posted the whole meeting he had with Newman on the internet, and then we hated it. Then we boycotted Ain't It Cool News, and that was fun. Getting to Zack, he had just this incredible enthusiasm. He wasn't the most articulate person I had met. In fact, I don't think you finished a sentence back in those days. But he would
Wasn't necessary.
He would start the sentence and do pretty well for half of it, and then he would get up in the room, and then he would act it out. And he would do all of this stuff. And my boss at the time, Stacy Snyder, would just be like, what is he? Oh, this is... And he's kind of cute, and Stacy liked cute directors, and he was...
I'm not sure how I feel about that.
Was he in the sweats? Was he in the sweat t-shirt?
He was always in t-shirts, yeah.
Yeah. I don't think I owned anything other than
He spoke, he did speak about the genre part of it, and he spoke about wanting to do these cinematic things. He was not able to articulate, that opening sequence is just amazing when she finally leaves the cul-de-sac and you're following her car and you're up above and you see the helicopter from the original Dawn of the Dead, which is, cool. I heard a couple of you people go, wee, helicopter. And then that explosion. And I think, based on the early conversations we had in the vetting of Zack, he was able to articulate that cinema, but without that specificity. And I think once we saw that, we knew who, again, that visionary word is used because of who he was in those early meetings. There you have it.
That's nice. That was really nice.
It is nice. You were objectified by a
I do remember being objectified. No, I don't remember that at all. It was fine. But I do remember, literally, I think just saying the word running zombies, and then I did jump up in the room and say and they're gonna slam against the thing, and everyone's like, okay, that sounds cool.
That seems intense, yes.
Yeah.
You had pitched the tunnel sequence too, which I don't think was in the script we had. So James Gunn wrote the original script, which is amazing. I, in fact, read it last night because I'm that nerd.
That's cool.
And it's good. There's some crazy sequences in it, but there isn't the tunnel sequence. And I think you actually pitched that in the Get the Job meeting. You wanted to, find another sequence to do, which is a great sequence.
That's cool.
So show of hands, how many...
Oh, you mean going over to Andy's?
Yeah, going
Coming back.
Yeah, and this part. Where
Yeah, it's dragging him and he's shooting the guy.
Right.
Yeah.
And you tried to articulate, again, you mined all of it.
Yeah.
Who prefers running zombies? I do. There we go.
Listen, I am.
You catch that, internet?
I'm not I'm a middle of the road guy. We did that running zombie thing because we needed that for the film, but I'm also not against. I'm a Shambler fan as well. If there's Shamblers in your film, I'm 100% down. But if you need to ratchet it up, by all means,
Make them run.
Make them run.
Yeah.
It's cool to add something to canon like that. I think running zombies is a thing that we've added to canon that has become it's its own thing, which is cool. I mean, I think that that's the one thing about the zombie genre. I didn't know when we made the movie that the internet existed and that there were people that were super into zombies, in a crazy way. I remember I was getting some death threats about if I fuck this up, I'm gonna kill you. And I was like, what? What happened? Because I was into comic books, but I wasn't really into zombies. I liked the movies; they were cool, but it wasn't my lifestyle choice, And though I respect that as one, So yeah, that was a thing I discovered.
Are there zombie connoisseurs here? Yeah.
There's gotta be. I mean, just because they're here.
It's yeah, no
They
kidding.
might not raise their hands, but they're here. It's 9, it's almost 10 o'clock at night, and they're
That's right.
watching people talk about a zombie thing. So
So I got
it's an issue they have to deal with.
it is. So we got some questions from the Vero user base, and I'm just going to ask one because we really want to open up to you guys, and definitely ask Jake one before he has to book. Lenny Viali, Bud, good question. That kind of is appropriate for this school. What advice would you give young filmmakers?
We should have Jake answer that. No, Jake, do you want it? Like, what
Go for
advice
it, man.
would you give young filmmakers? I really do want to know. What advice would you give young filmmakers?
Bring ideas.
You don't like that?
Bring ideas is really actually, that's kind of the whole thing in a lot of ways. No, seriously, it really is, because we just gave an example of that in our, you might not be able to speak, but if you have, you did have ideas, so
You can act them out.
yeah, exactly.
It is a visual medium after all.
It is. It's not. I mean, there's good talking sometimes, but I guess. So, what the question is, young filmmakers, what do you?
What's the advice?
Advice.
What do you tell them?
I think for me, what I would say to students or anyone who comes up to me and says, "I want to be like a movie director. What do I do? How do I do it?" I always say, like, just if you have an idea, like, try and film it as best you can. Try and like get your friends.
Oh, it's not my fault.
It is. You're the only guy up here that can fix that.
Could you edit that out?
It's like if we were in like a helicopter, you're the helicopter pilot. If it's crashing, and you're like, it's not like, I don't know what's happening.
He went right there.
Helicopter. It's literally heading for those rocks. But no, but like I really do believe that in our modern world, like everyone has, you have a movie camera in your pocket. You literally are carrying it around with you. It's a 4K camera in your pocket. And you get, and like, like I often hear people say like, like if I could get a camera, I could make a movie. They're filming me while they're saying it too. Like, if I could get if I just knew where these cameras were, what do you say? And I'm like, well, okay, you have like like 5 years ago, you literally have a camera that's like no one could buy. So just try and use it. Anyway, so my point is only that if you have a vision and if you have like an idea and if you have a way of seeing, try and express that through the little piece of equipment you have, whether it's that camera, whether you go buy a more expensive camera, that's fine too, but just try and make it. I think that's it. I really do.
Well said, and be tenacious. So let's have some questions from the audience, please. We have one right up front here, and here comes a mic.
I think it.
I can always yell. I'm right at the front.
Yeah,
Hi, Zach. So there's a really, really gorgeous shot at the end of the film. It's funny that you're here because it's on Michael, and it's sort of like the camera is on him, and he's framed by red on one side and blue on the other side. And I don't know if you have anything that you remember about designing that specific shot, but if you don't remember anything specific about that, if you could just share about your approach to color design, because I feel like your color work is gorgeous, like your color palettes are always exquisite, and I think it's like, I mean, you have many strengths as a director, but I think that's definitely something that I always notice across your body of work.
Okay, I guess that shot in particular, also there's like white behind him, there's some smoke in the middle of the frame. It's kind of separating him from the background. And I think that, like, I remember when we were talking about setting the shot up and we were working on it as an idea, it's a pretty emotionally rough moment, I think, for everyone too, like, because, it has, I always say that this movie has like a rock and roll ending. To me, that's like a rock and roll ending because it's just like, the guy like kills himself and it's a hard cut to black and then rock and roll music, comes on. So it's a very it's like a Pet Cemetery ending, like if you've seen that movie, Pet Cemetery, and it's like just a hard cut to like, I don't want to be buried in the pet. So you're like, oh, fuck, that's crazy. So I kind of felt like that and I had picked that song, People Who Had Died. I was driving in the car. I had like a tape of a mixtape. That was a while ago. I don't think it was on CD. It might have been on CD. Let's say it was on CD. That's better. Anyway, but I do remember like sort of trying to visualize that whole little sequence, you know, and even the Sarah shot with the sun kind of behind her, because, and look, it's problematic in your mind when you're visualizing that sequence. I'm like, because he says, I think in the script it said, I want to stay here. I think in the movie, it was supposed to be just the crack of dawn in the script, right? Because that was, and he says, I'm going to watch the sunrise, you know, enjoy the sunrise. And the truth is that, you know, when you're shooting a sequence like that, the sun just comes up.
Yeah.
And you can't fucking stop it from coming up. And you're like, by the time, you have this idea that like the sun's just gonna be barely up and it's gonna be this awesome, like, you know, and then it's like it's noon. And you're like, this is ridiculous.
Oh my God.
But I think we did get that shot pretty early, which I thought was a triumph in itself, because when I was watching the movie tonight, I was like, okay, when he actually says the line, the sun's kind of low in his eyes, and I felt like, okay, I believe that. I believe the sun's low, so that's cool. And so, but that was all in the same kind of setup, right? Because we had, it was like one of our few crane days, because it wasn't we didn't have a huge budget, so we didn't have a crane all the time, you know, which is cool. It's good that you don't have a crane every day, all day. We do that now, but it makes you lazy a little bit. But so when the boat, I guess we had the crane on a barge that was like right sort of to the side and behind. So that's like, if you notice when they came running up, there's like they all fall on the ground when the explosion goes off. There's like a down shot, and then it booms down along the sail, and you see them all climb on. So that's all the same setup, right? And I think it was a Techno crane. I don't know if they had those. Then maybe it was, because I do remember like all that coverage. Yeah, it was, because all of that coverage on the on Jake when he's like walking to get the to untie the boat and then coming back. That's all off the same setup, and so we were able to kind of do all of his side pretty fast, and it wasn't like we didn't have to do big switches to because he could push the boat away, and then it was just him. And if I recall, I think it was over 2 days. We did it on the second day, and the first thing up was the final shot. Or did we do it on the same day? But I do remember that.
I remember we were moving fast, though.
Yeah, we were moving super fast, because like I didn't want to get into the afternoon. We had the big explosion to do, and we had all that fighting. So I think, now that I think about it, actually we did all that coverage out on the dock first, and then we went in and did all the fighting with Michael and all the explosion, because I remember saying like, we really have to get this in the lowest light possible. The other stuff we'd kind of cheat, you know. But I think that shot, to make a long story short, that shot, because it was on the crane, we pushed the boat away. You know, we were able to like really make a nice shot and a nice moment there. And I think when I got into telecine, and we were kind of running the shot. Now, also, I think the one thing to know about this movie is I think it was like the second or third movie that they had done a DI with at Universal. Like, that was just like, they cut the negative anyway. That's how they didn't even know. So when we were restoring this to the director's cut, one of the things that was crazy was, I was like, okay, so now we can do the director's cut. They were like, yeah, sure, go ahead, knock yourself out. Whatever, no one's gonna buy that. No, they didn't, they weren't ready, but it was still. So I went to look at restoring, the reason I noticed it was because, you know, in the Mackay shootout sequence, where he's shooting with, what's her name, the old lady? They had cut the negative so that frames, when you cut the negative, a frame dies, you know? They literally destroy a frame. So I couldn't put it back exactly, because there were just frames missing all over the place. And I was like, well, why did they cut the negative? It doesn't make any sense. Like we did it, it's a digital finish. But they were just like, no, we have to archive it, so you have to cut the negative because that's how you make a movie. So so my point is that when we were in there working with this DI process, and the cool thing was because I had come from commercials and those were all the tools that I knew, the DI really worked well for me because I didn't know how to color time a movie like a professional filmmaker. I knew how to do a DI though better than most probably of the people that were working because I did it every day. That was like the way I worked. And so that shot in particular, I remember being able to like swing a bunch of power windows and be like, oh, look, I know how to like, you know, so power windows are basically like you bring these like filters in on the side or like vignettes and things like that, and you can actually physically like say, okay, this side of the frame I'm gonna darken, this side I'm gonna lighten, this center of the frame will have more contrast. Mm-hmm. And I think at the time you could only do 4 windows. Now I think it's a limitless number or something crazy.
Who did that, Stefan?
No, Steph didn't. You guys wouldn't let me use Steph for that movie because he was just a commercial. No, he was just a commercial. He hadn't done any movies yet. I think, or just a few. It was someone at eFilm. I forget. We could look it up. He was a cool guy, but Matt was very like allowing me to like do whatever. So those shots,
and it's one of the best,
were really carefully made.
In the movie. And
yeah.
I liked also that those 2 shots. The shot of Sarah with a little flare. And the shot of Jake, those are 2 great. I really, when I was watching them tonight, I thought they were really good shots.
Emotional too.
Yeah, really emotional. I don't know if that answers the question 100%.
It was
The
Dawn.
best of my recollection.
Yeah.
It was Dawn.
Yeah.
Michael was dead. You see what they did there? Okay, just making sure. Quick question for Mr. Weber before he votes. Anybody? Okay. See one? Okay, over there. Thanks.
Hi, I love you as an actor. I always have, and I remember you in Meet No Problem and Meet Joe Black and in House, and I always feel so safe and calmed whenever I see you on the screen. And in this movie, absolutely. And it was a little. I didn't think of it as like purely an action movie. I thought it had a lot of heart. So did you take it when you got the script? Did you approach it any differently? Did you just take it
just as real as possible? I took it very seriously. I was very self-serious back then, younger, and so I thought it was, I thought this is like the Cambodian genocide, so I just treated it not as a genre movie, but just as real as it could possibly be for me. I missed out on some of the fun on set because I was in my, weird headspace a lot of the time, and I'm watching the movie now. I see it was so much fun to watch. It was such an enjoyable couple of hours. But when I was working on it, I really tried to take it very seriously.
Well, it paid off because I thought it was perfect.
It was beautifully conceived. Yeah. The part and how sort of his slow development. You think of it as something, and then by the end, he becomes something else that he didn't know because he's sort of a tabula rasa. He doesn't really have any identity. He has all these weird jobs and he's fucked up some marriages, but he doesn't have any real identity. And then he sort of finds his identity in this apocalyptic, in this moment of societal crisis, and that was kind of cool. And then it's so sad when he goes.
And I'm sorry to tack on another question. When you were the man who got bit on the hand, were you in the character's mind? Was that an ultimate decision? You were gonna kill him right then and there?
I think it was. He was the kind of guy. I think it was scripted that, that moment, he takes that moment. There's no question that he's gonna get him off safe and then do what has to be done. But funny, I remember when we were shooting the end of that, and you had me pull the trigger once.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because that was a nice little DVD after party moment. Pulling the trigger, and also I remember the first thing we all did when we sat down and met with Zach, the people who were cast. I think we were all up there in Toronto, and the first thing you did is play that Jim Carroll song at the end.
Oh yeah.
all my friends had died right after that. That was the first moment. You played some of the music, and you played the stereophonic song, Have a Nice Day. So the music, which I thought was so, I've always thought the music was so great in this movie. The choices were so funny, and Have a Nice Day. But I remember that Jim Carroll song. I was like, oh man, we're getting into punk rock.
Yeah.
This is a punk rock.
By the way, I used to just drive around in my car and listen to that. Like, I'd put all those songs together, and I would just listen to them and drive in the car and be like, this would be awesome. You know, if we could make with my mixtape, yeah. For sure it was a tape, it wasn't a DVD. Because I remember that car didn't have a DVD.
I'd like to just add,
or a CD.
I'm adding before Jake leaves, that scene is very powerful when he walks in and Sarah looks up at him and says, I'm glad it wasn't you. And your reaction to it's great. It's just, it sells everything without a word. You just, yeah.
And it's also a sweet moment, the chainsaw moment that you guys have. It's really,
He says, I'm trying.
yeah. And he's like,
This is all I got
and
to
she
work
says,
with.
like, it's the most romantic thing I've ever seen. That's pretty cool. I don't think that was in the original draft of the script. I don't, anyway.
You wrote that on the weekend.
I think so. I might have.
Yeah. I think it came up something good, you said.
I just say one thing before I go, so I gotta get my kid, he's 2 hours late for a birthday party. You know, I noticed it the first time, and I haven't seen this since the premiere in 2004. But I felt that what Zack did was really cool, is that he never made it maudlin, but he still allowed for some emotional content, but without doing too much. And just the tone and the pacing, you know, this is a good fucking movie, man.
You're awesome. You're awesome in the movie. There's no movie without you, so.
Thanks for doing
All right, thanks, brother. Thanks for coming out. Appreciate it. All right, you're the best.
Thanks, man.
Good enough. So we should talk about sound some more.
We should get some more sound.
We can find out what happens next. In the
Question about sound, someone.
What about, wait, so the last time, when last we read, we had just like previewed the movie. I thought that's where we were.
That's where we were.
That's where we were.
That's where we were.
We hadn't thrown one football into the basketball hoop.
That's what keeps him coming back.
This is crazy. Since you know sound is kind of very important for movies, when especially you're watching them, how do you know when to stop? Other than like studio deadlines for when you need to put out a movie, how do you stop yourself from trying to get it perfect?
The motto is there's 24 hours in a day. So we just don't go home. That's basically it. 4th of July, we poke our head out the studio, see theme park, blowing off some fireworks, get back to work.
That's a good question, though. I've
So-
never heard
so,
that question
yeah,
as it relates to sound.
So I think the second half of that is we never finish, we just run out of time. So but the last little thing we can do is we get a chance for the home use. For Blu-ray, DVD, we get those finite notes. Working with Zack and Debbie's awesome because there's more love notes. I call them love notes. Zack's like, that was cool. I go, love note. Because most of the time they're critical notes, like, what were you thinking? So that's a pleasure, and same with this, the right hand over there, is to get all those love notes. And Zack's kind of general, like, just make it cool. You know what to do. So we assemble the movie, a reel by reel. So we're about 20-minute chunks. So we focus. It takes about 2.5 days or so for each 20 minutes of running time, sound-wise. So it's multi-layered. And the thing about sound is it's transparent. So, but it's also a powerful tool with the dynamic, especially in this movie. It's really dynamic where we build sound pressure, it gets it's big, it's up there, it's up there, it's up there, and then it drops to silence. And sound and music is a very emotional tool. So we're constantly tweaking. There's a lot of picture editing happening while we're mixing. So we're reacting to those changes, reacting to notes, and then our sensibilities as re-recording mixers to assemble. So we're always trying to get every last decibel we can get in there.
Awesome, thanks. I saw a hand up over here somewhere. Oh, okay.
guy already has it. He brought his own.
Hello everyone, Keith from the Nicecast. I quickly also want to just thank Vero for bringing me out here, so shout out to them. It's a good feeling to be in a place where we can appreciate Zack Snyder films and not get essay-sized comments on the internet why we shouldn't be fans of yours.
That's fine. Good. I've been loving this podcast, or whatever this is.
One thing that's always fascinated me about your career, Zach, is sort of the creative evolution. Like for my social media audience, I always say stay low and build. And that's been your career when I think about you starting from commercials for various brands and then the Michael Jordan's Playground and then your directorial debut. So I was wondering if you could share the insight into the process and the journey. Did you internally always know that movies on this scale was the thing for you, or was it something where one thing led to another and you just went with your gut?
Yeah, it's good. It's a good question. I'd always wanted to make movies. That was why I came out here. You know, like I love movies. I grew up loving movies. I made movies when I was in high school with my friends, and I made that's all I kind of, that was like my thing, just like I made movies. And so when I got here to this school, I made a movie. I was just saying this upstairs. I made a movie in like my third term here at school, and I just kind of realized that I looked at it and I was like, no one's gonna give me a job off this thing. Like who's gonna see the Steven Spielberg and be like, yeah, give this kid, a movie. I'm like, that's not gonna happen. So I sort of, I'm not gonna say I panicked, but I was like, okay, so I gotta buckle down and figure this out. So I just started shooting some spots here at school, and the thing that you realize when you do like a spec TV commercial, like as a student, is that you can get the production value in 60 seconds. So say you're making a 30-minute short film or even a 20-minute short film. All the money that you're gonna spend on the film is like stretched out over 20 minutes. So it is what it is. But when you're doing just 30 or 60 seconds, you can crush all that into like, a pretty finite size, and you can create a product that could feel. The best student film is hard to pass off as like a big budget Hollywood epic. It's difficult to do. Some people can do it, but a 60-second commercial, you can get pretty close to what is on the air, and I think that I was able to I was able to create a bunch of spots that felt like real TV commercials. They were weird, but they felt like TV commercials. And so that was how, when I got out of school, I had this pretty cool reel. And actually, I did Michael Jordan's Playground while I was on, I graduated, I was out of school for 6 months, and then I did Michael Jordan's Playground, then I went back and was working on my master's, and I did three or four more spots, and then I never finished, because I actually finished those spots, and then I got a job. I got signed to a company, so I was just pretty much, I had to go to work. And so my point is only that always in the distance was this idea of oh yeah, I want to make movies. And I had run I was going to make the SWAT movie. That was the movie that was the first movie that I'd gotten all the way down the road on, and I was pretty much ready to film it. And David Ayer had written the script, and it was pretty much, we were going to make a super hard R rated movie. I was like, I want to make a movie where any SWAT cop after this movie, everyone's just gonna think they're fucking awesome. It's gonna be they'll be able to, they're just gonna be stone cold studs no matter where they go. If you said I'm in SWAT, they'll be like, fuck, I saw your movie, it was awesome. So that was the movie I wanted to make. It was basically propaganda. SWAT-aganda or whatever, I don't know. Just made that up. But then the studio, God, that phrase.
That was Sony, not Universal.
That was Sony. They said, what about, let us, we know you're excited, we like that part, but what if it was PG-13? Do you think that's a thing that's possible? I'm like, the guys they're the cops that come with the guns out already, right? You know, like a guy can go through his entire police career and say like, I've never drawn my pistol my entire career, you know, I'm proud of that. I'm like, these guys, the guns are like out, like that's it. They're like, they want to shoot someone. So I was like, I just don't see it. Like, I don't know how to do it. So anyway, then the relationship went south based on my non-enthusiasm for art, for non-art.
It's important to just, this is important. He basically talked himself out of his first picture.
Yeah, I quit. I quit the movie. I quit. And by the way, I was told by my manager and by the head of that studio that you weren't supposed to do that. It's not cool. It's not cool that we were going to give you a giant, pretty big movie.
Bigger than Dawn of the Dead.
Bigger than Dawn of the Dead, much bigger, twice as big at least, as far as the budget goes. And I was like, no, I can't do it like that. And so, but thank God that the Dawn of the Dead script literally arrived, or Eric had it like 2 weeks later. He's like, hey, what about zombies? I was like, zombies are awesome. and then you know, so it worked out. It worked out cool. But you know, you get all the way. You pretty much do anything. You know, it is a thing. Like you sit in that room with these like super smart people, and they tell you like, oh yeah, we want you to make your movie, and you know it's gonna be awesome. And then they go like, so that's great. This is your dream, right? That's awesome. That's great that that's your dream. One other thing, and I know we didn't mention this right away, is PG-13. That's cool, right? Like that's no big deal. That's like doesn't change it at all. And so like you know, it's pretty crazy to think about. Like I was like, listen, because to me I was making TV commercials. So as far as compromising goes, the cool thing about a TV commercial is you're kind of out of the gate when you make like if you're making a Valtrex commercial, you know, and like it's not gonna be, you know, it's herpes medication, you know. There's not like you're not like, the bar is kind of low for your artistic expectations of like, you know, the compromise part is like that's out the door when the board arrives. Like it comes to, you know, your house and they're like, okay, so what do you think? You want to jump on the phone to talk about this Valtrex commercial? I was like, yeah, that sounds great. So, you know, it's another thing entirely when you're in and you've been like, you're thinking about like, oh man, there's gonna be like these SWAT guys and they're trying to protect this. They've got, even though this is the guy they hate, they gotta protect him because these guys want to kill him. They gotta move him through the city and there's all these gangs trying to kill him. It's gonna be awesome. And then they're like, yeah, but we're glad you're into it. But is it cool if like, you know, we just fuck the whole thing up? Is that cool? So, you know, I think that's the scary, like, look, because in the end, it is a product. You know, people do have to go see it, and you have to like kind of go like, okay, well, what is the thing that these people are investing a lot of money in, what is the thing that would make it the most successful, right? And there is a difficult give and take with that, because no one knows. You know, it's a magical, impossible thing, so. Didn't answer the question again, I did that. I'm good at that.
It's a gift.
Not even close.
But it's such a long throw that you can't tell where it came from.
It landed.
You'll get a chance.
Yeah.
Next question. Somebody's got a mic? Right here.
All right.
Yeah, hi. So quick question for you. Without giving away any spoilers, are you taking any learnings from this film and applying it to your next zombie film?
Oh, this Dawn of the Dead.
Yeah.
spoilers on the next movie that you're doing.
Yeah, well, look,
recently announced.
I'm super excited. Look, I will say this: this movie, when we finished it, I was super happy with the tone of the movie. Right? I was super. It was a very difficult tone to hit, which is this weird. It's like self-reflexive. It's aware that it's a zombie movie, but at the same time, it doesn't let you off the hook completely, but it also is not afraid to like show some serious gore, but it's also not afraid to like have fun with that same gore because it knows that it like you're within genre. Like when you blow Andy's head off, it's like ridiculous, but it's also awesome. So like it's that there's a super cool tone that kind of, it's like this tennis, you're playing this sort of game of tennis with the like emotional like tone of the film, like where is it exactly? And I think that's a thing that is really inspiring and cool, and a thing that I think I can do even like more crazily now that I've kind of understand the why of it. You know, at the time I knew I liked a genre, I knew I liked zombie movies, and I knew I liked certain aspects of them because I knew that it was absurdist, but I also knew that I believed in that absurdity. I know that sounds crazy, and so it was fun to me. Like when Andy gets his head blown off, that is fun to me. So it is a very particular thing. So it's like, you know, a doctor, you know, like doctors don't get squeamish when they see you're hacked open. They go, oh look, that's cool, your lungs, and so like I think that's like, to me, that's like when you take it apart, like there is something fun, inherently fun to me when you hit the genre tone, and it's like a bell, you know, it just kind of, you're like, okay, that's right, and it's impossible to know. The cool thing is that there's no way to know what that is until you actually do it, but I do think that will end up in that sort of style, not Andy getting his head blown off, but that idea of like how much fun that can be will definitely, now, especially now that I'm kind of have some distance from it, I think I can do it with much more deliberate and sort of premeditated design than I did here. I knew what I wanted, but it was all fresh, and I'm just like, wow, okay, that's cool. I was like, can we make a head that we can just blow up? Like, is that anybody? And the guy'd be like, I guess we can. I'd be like, okay, so we should just get the actor and cast his head and then like blow it up, and that'd be cool. And then, okay. Actually, it's cool because if you look carefully, one of the eyes like flies at the lens. And it's really great.
How about the?
I think if you freeze frame, it's like there's an eye. I mean, in the editorial, I'd be like, "That's awesome. Let's look at it again."
How about the pause on the staircase?
Oh yeah, that's good. Oh look, I like you fed me.
Yeah,
you fed me. Yeah, it's cool. You didn't. This is a funny. This is also just it's insightful of nothing, but it's fun. So when I showed the movie to the studio, this was not even the first time. I think it was like
the studio being over here.
No, the studio's also over here. You just reminded me. But this is the friendly studio. Sorry, my chair just broke. Okay, I'm gonna leave it. Anyway, what's that? Yeah, well. So anyway, I was showing the movie, and and you know the scene where they all the zombies are at the bottom of the stairs and they're trapped. And
you mean where the zombies are running really fast and all of a sudden they slow down?
That's it.
And then they start thinking like, "Ooh, we're gonna slow down and then attack you."
That's it right there. When we showed it, and he did not. This was not his comment. Someone said, "Okay, Zach, I have a question. I'm a little bit. Do you think the zombies would really stop at the bottom of the stairs like that and just look?" And I was like, you know what? In real life, they wouldn't. It's 100%. I fucked up. Yeah. But I was like, also, do remember this is a traumatization. So like, we tend to like embellish. So it is fake clapping. Yeah, they're clapping for like that. Okay, thank you. Thank him. Anyway, that's all. That was good. It was good. That's it. I think we talked about it on the stage. We did.
I think we talk about it all the time.
We did. In every movie, I think we talked about it.
Remember that time?
Yeah, like we're doing like every movie since then. We go like, remember that time the guy said that thing about the zombies? In real life, they wouldn't. Yeah, that was cool.
This explains Dylan's success as a studio executive and a producer because he can keep a completely straight face during that entire exchange.
I loved it. I was not a successful studio executive. This was one of my better ones for sure.
Awesome.
That is not true. Yes, they're very much bigger movies.
Hi, Zach. What is your process and approach to editing?
Okay, so what you do is you take, what you want to do is, they have slates at the beginning of every shot. You got to cut those off. That's where you start. Because that looks crazy. No. I've worked with a lot of great editors, and it's funny because in this movie has a particular cut in it that I love, which is when, and if you actually look at the cut, it makes no sense, but it actually goes right by, which is the moment when Sarah Pauli's husband leaps on the hood of the car and he punches the glass, right? But the moment of impact is he punches and it's actually it's another shot when the window cracks. There's a cut at the crack, and it's obvious. We weren't trying to make it look like the same moment or anything, but it's kind of cool because it's a pretty jarring shot, but it's one of those shots that makes you go like, oh wow, editing is cool, because like on paper this should be horrible. This moment should not work at all, but like in the movie it makes me, I always go like, oh, that's cool, because of how cleanly it works and how it should not work. And I think that so the relationship I've had with all these amazing editors I've worked with, you always learn something new from everyone. They've cut like 1 million movies, and I have a pretty strong idea about the way I want things to go together, because I draw all these shots and I always draw them in the order that I think that they should be cut. And so it's not that the cool thing about David Brenner is David would always sit with my storyboards, and like the assembly would always be based directly on the way I drew it. And then we would fuck around with it, but the base was always that. So I think my relationship to editing was really strong because I always had a very clear idea about like how I want the shots to go together. But I do also think, on the other hand, what you learn from someone who you trust and who you respect aesthetically as far as how they think the shots can go together, or how they can like sort of like change the order and say, okay, well look, if I move the shot down, when we eliminate this section of the movie, it's clean, but it kind of like maybe it's more direct, and or you might find yourself have totally restructured the entire film. And these are things that happen every day in editorial, but like I think for me it's a constant evolution. But the thing about a great editor is them trying to just get your perspective and like understand how you see it. And like I say, I think having this document of the way of the shots drawn, the scenes drawn, it has been helpful in my relationship to them.
Hi, Zach. This is a question mostly on most of your films, especially Dawn, Man of Steel, BVS, and Watchmen. When you're making the movie and stuff, when like for the intros and the endings, are you deciding on what song you use? And I know for BVS and Man of Steel, you use their themes, or Hans Zimmer. And then for Dawn and Watchmen, you use When the Man, the James.
Times Are Changing.
Yeah, Times Are Changing, and the Johnny Cash song, I'm forgetting the name. And then the My Chemical Romance song at the end of Watchmen. I just want to know, like, when you're writing it or whatever you're doing, are you picking those yourself, or are you, as you go? Like, I just wanted to know.
Yeah. I mean, I think in this film for sure, I was like, it was on my mixtape again. When the Man Comes Around was on my mixtape, so I'd been listening to that song. I think that Johnny Cash Hurt. Was it Hurt? What's the name of that album? Yeah, that album had just come out, and I was like, yeah, this is fucking awesome. I'm gonna get the man. When the Man Comes Around should be in this movie, and then it works amazingly well in this title sequence. And then Times They Are Changing is a song that is very indicative of Watchmen. It's like it's referenced in the graphic novel. So for me, that was just like a really easy. And then on that movie, we were able to get the stems. We got the stems from Bob Dylan to that song. And we were able to remix it because we made it like a minute longer or something crazy than the normal version of the song. So we remixed it, and so we got our hands on those original tracks, which were horrible, I think, right? When they were all like bleedy and crazy.
It's always a struggle to get that much control from the artist, especially iconic songs like that. Yeah. To be able to change balance, relationships from vocals to percussion to strings, etc. So it's always but you always have to be protective of that balance and pay homage to the original intent of the song.
Yeah, we wanted to sound like the song, but
yeah,
you know.
All right, one last thing.
The last thing we wanted to be is the guy that fucked up Times They Are Changing.
You did it though, so it's
a little bit.
No. Last thing though, before I give it back, your friend Dania says hi.
Oh, awesome. She's the best. Hopefully she's there. I think she's for there. Oh, is she texting? She should be texting.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Can you kind of talk about like choosing a director of photography, like a first AD, like what do you look for in your crew members?
I think on Dawn, correct me if I'm wrong, but Matt was, for sure, I had this idea that I was going to get, I think my first idea was to have Larry Fong shoot this movie, but Larry had shot a movie.
It wasn't good to do first-time director and first-time DP.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, if I was still
it's those hard. You're wanting.
Except I wouldn't have had him going. You can fuck him over now.
You're taking a shot or an artistic shot on somebody, and you're hedging the bet a little bit. Is your boss mentality, and what you want to do is protect the vision that you're employing. So you want to give this guy his tools, but you also want him to look at all these other tools that have done it before, even though maybe they haven't done it well. But that was good.
I mean, that's good. Yeah. That was good. That was good. And I think
other than he tried to do some subterfuge.
No, it was just cool. It was cool. It might have been just a move to get me more on his side. You don't know. In the end, it's hard to say, but it worked regardless. But the funny thing is, when we shot Dawn, I was a director cameraman, right, in commercials. I was a DP and a director. So I was like, I should just shoot the movie myself. I don't know. They're like, you need to hire a DP, and I was like, what? Why? I'll just do it. And they were like, no, that's not a thing. And then I was like, what about my friend Larry? He could shoot it. And they were like, okay. So it does make sense when you hear him say it. If you hear me, if I was saying
my friend Larry, who went to art school with me.
With me, he was great. He's totally cool. Which turned out to be true.
He's great.
He is great. See, so maybe I don't know. Maybe, but in hindsight,
should have been an art.
In hindsight, that is true. But in hindsight, that was a great choice, and he was I learned a lot from him, and I had a great time working with him. He was amazing, he knew what he was doing, and it was fun. And he also let me operate tons of those shots. He would just say, "Okay, Snyder, take the camera, go film the shot," and I'd be like, "Oh, awesome!" It's he knew I was chomping at the bit half the time, or all the close-ups, all those crazy giant close-ups of keys and everything. If you notice, the movie has this cadence of a giant close-up. There's all these giant close-ups because to me it was very much a claustrophobic. It was supposed to be a claustrophobic movie, and I always felt these big giant close-ups, and especially on doors. I had this obsession with this idea that these doors, this was the thing that was holding them in. So doorknobs, locks, keys, everything regarding doors had to be shot in these giant close-ups. So we got these Inavision lenses, which are these sort of close focus lenses, and there's this super long. You need tons of light to shoot with them, and so they're like, I think they opened to like an 8. You have to have like at least like the widest they opened to at that time was an 8, and so we would have these shots of keys and stuff, and so Matt would just go, Zach, go. We'd have a setup to do, like we'd be doing something. He'd go, like, oh, this is gonna take half an hour. Why don't you go shoot your keys? Go shoot your key shot. And I'd be like, oh, cool. And I'd run off. And it just kept me busy, because otherwise I had too much, it was 20 minutes. For me, that's like, in a hamster's life, that's like an hour. I'd sit down and go like 20 minutes. What the fuck am I gonna do for 20 minutes?
Where's the football?
Yeah, like we didn't have. Then no one could play. It was Canada. No, they could play football. They invented football. Don't forget that. Everyone should remember that football was invented in Canada. I've been told that a lot. I shot all my movies in Canada. Trust me, I know that. But so he would give me those little assignments, and so it was like it kept me sane through because I just I wasn't used to not shooting, like directing and not shooting. So it's you as a director, you find yourself, you've told all the actors what's happening, you've told the camera where it's going to be, and everyone starts to make the shot, and then they're like, okay, thanks, great job. And then I'm like, well, what can I do? And they're like, well, you can go sit in your chair, the one with your name on it, and just don't get in the way.
Make sure that the performance is working.
Well, when the performers are performing, that's fine. But in the meantime, you're just waiting. So I was like, can I make it? Can I do something while we're waiting? They're like, yeah, go shoot those shitty key shots that are never going to be in the movie. They're in the movie. Oh yeah, they're in.
Question over here.
Hey, Mr. Snyder. Quick question. So, big fan of Chips the dog.
Oh yeah.
So I appreciate you not killing him off on camera. That's a big thank you.
I think Chips is still alive. He definitely is on that island because we've established that the zombies don't like him. He's become feral. He's eating the rabbits. He's 100% fine.
So let me ask, what was the thought process?
The sequel to this movie is just Chips, by the way. That's why they sent me the script. James Gunn wrote it. It was great, but it was just Chips, and I was like, I don't know.
Isn't he running the whole thing?
Yeah, it was PG-13. That's why I said no.
So no, you're fine. So what was the thought process of having the infected not go after Chips? Because in most
well, it solved a huge plot problem.
Spoken
okay.
fire.
All right. Sorry. The biology of dogs, you see, Also, the one thing that you should know is that Debbie's childhood dog growing up, was named Chips, and that's how the dog got its name.
Really?
I was like, we should call the dog Chips, because Debbie's childhood dog was named Chips.
I thought you must have been eating chips on set or something.
No.
Okay.
No.
We were dating, so he was trying to impress me.
Yeah, I was like, I'm putting things in the movie that you...
Do zombies eat dogs in real life?
No, they don't.
Okay.
They don't.
We're done.
That was the one thing I did that was realistic.
Good. You kept it close to reality. Thank you.
Oh, that's a good point. That's a good point.
Studio would not allow that.
Thank God we don't have commercial. No, yeah. Are you kidding me?
It's not a commercial movie.
No, you never kill the dog. Kill everyone, but don't kill the dog. That's a well-known.
Everybody knows that.
That's a well-known fact. Chips is like evolved. He's probably built a spaceship by now. He's ruling some other world.
Hi, Zach, over here. I have a maybe controversial question.
Oh.
No. But no, when my former advisor was here, I think he had been around when you were here, and I think, said that you, Michael Bay, and Tarsem were here all at the same time, or
at a time. That's true.
Yeah, and I think Larry shot for both you and Michael. I'm just kind of curious, like,
True.
how you
Well,
guys...
me and Tarsem, but not Michael.
Oh, okay, but maybe just overlapping initially in commercials or in school or in the biz now. Like, I'm just kind of curious, like, oh my God, that guy from my film studies class, or I don't know, like, if you had any funny stories.
No. They're all like, look, Michael. So Michael was, I think, 2 years ahead of me and Tarsem and Larry. So he was like when we were just maybe even 3 years ahead, because I remember when he was shooting his Coca-Cola spot. I don't know if that must be in the archives. I don't know if have you ever watched that?
I've seen it, no.
Oh, it's amazing. So he shot this Coca-Cola spot in like Long Beach with like thousands of extras, and it was like 1945, and like the soldiers have just returned from war, and like the guy comes off the boat and he like kisses his girlfriend, kind of in the same iconic. I did that in Watchmen, only it was 2 girls, but so he kisses his girlfriend and they drink a Coke, and it's like it was
Pearl Harbor, right?
it was literally like the biggest thing I'd ever seen. Like, shut up. No, it was like this gigantic commercial. It was your fault. So we were all just like, who is this guy? This is insane. Like, he has like Panavision cameras and cranes and stuff. This is awesome. And you know, and I think that Michael, he did an Avion water commercial that was amazing. He did like, I'm trying to think what the other ones were, but they were all like epic. And we were just like, I think the thing that was cool about it was we had just arrived at school and we were like, oh, okay, this is what I guess everyone's expecting. You know, 1,000 extras and like a battleship. So we should get to it. But yeah, so but I've seen Michael a bunch, and he's super sweet, and it's cool to see him. He'd be like, oh, Zach, how you doing? Like, remember when we did that thing or whatever? You worked on my crew. And Tarsim, of course, is a really good friend. And Larry, you know, I see him, like, I talk to him on the phone every day. So yeah, these guys are all my like buddies. So it's look, I always also say, like, if you're in film school, those people that you're with, you know, your friends who are like your crew members or whatever, those people you'll take with you for the rest of your life, and those will be your guys, you know, like, oh, that guy's my producer. Like, are you still here? Is Kendall here? No. So Kendall Henry, you know, went to school here. He was my commercial producer for like 10 years, and he has a Sky Rentals. But like, yeah, and we were all just sitting around in this room looking at our stupid Super 8 movies. I remember we used to put the Super 8 projector, we had to put it on like a board, right? Because it didn't have enough throw to reach from back there. So we put a board across the seats, and then put the projector like back there, and then, you know, basically had a sheet up here that we were projecting it on. So yeah, it was cool. And like Matthew Ralston, and I don't know, it's cool. It's a good group. There was a good group of people.
Cool. I see a hand over here. Matthew teaches here, by the way, Matthew Ralston.
What's that?
Matthew teaches here now.
Oh, yeah.
The class, awesome.
Yeah.
Power of Pleasure.
Yeah, he's Power of Pleasure.
The Power of Pleasure is all about.
I'm taking that class.
It's quite good.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Hi, Zach.
Sorry, I'm getting over that.
No worries. So like in the past 5 years or so, I feel like video games have really come to a level where they are equal, if not surpassing, the emotional context of films. And I was wondering if, like, obviously in 2004 you couldn't really draw too much, but now do you look at video games for inspiration, for emotion in your films?
Yeah, look, I do like video games. I'm not gonna lie. And I don't know what that lie would have gotten me. But I don't think I'll be honest, I do not use them to find that particular part of it. Although I do feel like, for me, some of the shot making and some of the kind of the way the stories are told visually, I think can be incredibly innovative and really there's a way in that's different from movies, you know, and I think that's interesting.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, for example, the new God of War game is one continuous shot over the shoulder.
It's interesting.
Just ideas like that.
Yeah. See, they don't. Yeah.
It doesn't carry over, right?
Yeah, it's hard to. Yeah. Although I do think there's this movie coming out. What's that movie called? It's like it's got that 45-minute shot in it.
The Japanese one.
Yeah.
One Shot of the Dead.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, Long Day's Journey. Who said that? Yeah, Long Day's Journey.
Okay.
That's the one. Yeah, that'll be interesting. I haven't seen it. But I've heard it's pretty awesome, so we'll see. When's it come out? Does you know when it comes out? April 12th. So he has no idea. He doesn't like it. He's not interested in it in any way.
He's promoting it.
Yeah, he might have directed it. That'd be cool. But April 12th, we'll have to check it out, and we'll meet back here, and we'll talk about it.
Yeah, we'll see you all next week.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to stand up.
It's cool.
Big fan of your guys' work, and you as well. Thank you for being here. My name is Chris Cordova. I'm a 30-year-old writer, director, editor. I've had a pretty awesome career as far as getting myself out there and getting some really cool work under my belt. I worked with Wiz Khalifa, Blizzard, Toyota, like some really cool companies. It's a lot easier to get out there and do work for hire, commercial work. As an editor is kind of what I made my bread and butter. But my main goal and my main dream is obviously to direct films and to get there. So I know you guys are like, you just got to get the camera and get it going. And I built a good reel, but what's that next step? Like how do you get representation? Do you make a short film? I'm writing a film.
Are you a writer? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and that took me through like a 4-year course of like learning story structure and plot points and like, so I'm trying to do it all right and I'm trying to figure it out, but it's like, it's easier to make a living working, but how do you become the artist?
I totally get it.
And how do you get some attention from studio execs and people to want to invest in your projects like that?
Well, Dylan, what do you think? I mean, it's hard for me because my road was weird.
I think
how do you when you look for a director?
What I liked what you said tonight was I do think it's about shooting things that you can showcase as your thing and do it a lot, because there was something about Zack with all of the hours of film that he had shot that was there was a confidence in that, and I think a lot of this because it isn't. The hard part about film, even though everybody in this room, including me, loves the artistic endeavor of it, it's a business, and the people that fund it are looking to make money, and so they are, yes, this is true, and they don't want to just hand it over to Zack and Larry Fong and Michael Bay, like, hey guys, go have some fun.
It's a great idea, though.
Yeah, it's a great idea. So, having countless hours behind the camera is a good thing, commercials, a great thing. Representation helps. Having somebody that can speak for you, that has, he's in the game in some way.
Do you solicit them, or do you film festivals, or how do you get in front of those type of people?
I'll hand it back over to you on that. How do you get an agent?
But you go to do you see if there was a young filmmaker at a film festival or something, you often see, by the way, I feel like the indie world right now, and correct me if I'm wrong, is you see so many guys right now who've made one movie that was kind of a darling at one of the film festivals, and now they're doing a Godzilla movie. That seems like where they pluck people.
I also think right now, and you'll hear this coming out of school, but content is king beyond now. People want Netflix. They want 80 movies a year. Well, there's not 80 Zacks. So where do you find 80 directors? You know what I mean? So that's a huge opportunity.
I think we could do 80.
You couldn't do 80. No.
I could barely do one.
So I think you should try to use your stuff to get to Zack, and Zack helps you get signed to CIA.
There you go. Yeah. Oh, and give out his home address too.
It's an excellent idea.
Todd still here?
No, Todd left. He was afraid to get to this. My agent was here.
Yeah,
I would have just gone like this.
My agent in my school.
So he was sitting right next to you, I think.
We got time for 2 more questions, guys. Then we're going to wrap it up. I see a hand going up over here. Make them good.
So, your 2004 Dawn of the Dead is a remake of George A. Romero's 1978 version of Dawn of the Dead. And whenever you do a remake, there's that balance between I'm doing an homage to the original, but I also want to put my own spin on it. So for you, when you were doing that, how did you sort of find that balance between, I'm redoing this story people have seen, but I also want to do my own version of it?
It's a really great question. No, it is, by the way. It's good to see you. Look, first of all, we had James's script, right? So when I read the script, I was like, okay, this is cool. This is a guy who gets it. He loves the genre. He has respect for the genre, and he has respect for the original film. Like we try, and so even though our story in the end is a different story than the original, you know, it has the story elements of the original, and I think that's kind of how we went at it. And then we tried to like homage the original with all the original cast, well, not all of them, but a lot of the original cast, bringing them back and putting them in those sort of fun cameos to kind of say, like, we get it, we understand, we respect, and so therefore, hopefully, we're going to take you on this other ride, but we know where we came from, we know our roots, and we want to make sure that you understand that we understand. I think that's kind of how we went at it, and I think, you know, and like all the things, like the helicopter, Galen Ross, like all the things that we tried to do, you know, throughout the film to kind of just make sure that everyone understood that we were, you know, paying homage more than we were remaking that. And by the way, I wouldn't want to try and remake that movie exactly, because it's awesome. So, like, why, you know? So it is a slippery slope. And look, in the end, it's an IP that people know, like Dawn of the Dead. Yeah, make Dawn of the Dead again. That sounds great. It's an awesome name for a movie. It's an alliteration. You can't, those are so hard to forget, you know? And so if you have one like that, you should definitely do it. But, yeah, so, I mean, I hope that answers the question a little bit, but that's great.
Last question.
Here we go.
Hi, Zach, really big fan.
Thanks.
Question is, you referenced SWAT earlier on, and I'm curious beyond that too about your early days of working in features. What were some projects that you were working on that you were really going towards? How was the pitching process like early on as a young director? And how did you navigate working with the studio? Dylan, maybe you could speak to that a little bit too.
For me, what I would do is, I did have a shtick that I thought worked, and clearly it probably didn't now in hindsight. I thought it was clever. What I would do is, idiot, I would say to the studio executive, the young studio executive, because it was always a super young studio executive who was meeting me, because they were like, oh, there's this commercial director who wants to make a movie, you go meet him. Like that's how that was. I didn't know that at the time. I thought I had like my finger on the pulse of the studio, but clearly now I know I did not in any way.
You got a good executive.
No, you.
Yeah, I was.
I know, but I actually had I had a project with you. That's different. I'm talking about like my first meetings when I was doing generals.
I was getting insecure.
Yeah, no. When I was literally doing generals, so I would say they would so you're in a meeting with like. You go on a general at a studio, so they're like, first of all, you have to get that meeting. So they're like, okay, maybe they're doing a favor for your agent. I don't know what, but anyway, so you show up, and the first thing is like, so, you know, what are you interested in? What kind of movies do you want to make? Well, how do you see yourself? What kind of films? What kind of a voice do you have? Like, or anything. So I would always say, hey, that's all cool, but what do you guys like have here at the studio that you don't know how to like make into a movie, or that like, you know, what's a library property or a piece of IP that you guys love that you can't figure out? That's what I would say.
That's a good thing to do.
Right?
Because all studios are sitting on a bunch of IP that they've tried and they haven't figured it out, and you may be the one that cracks.
And by the way, SWAT was that for me. And they said, well, we have this thing. I don't know if you're interested in things like SWAT. I'm like, SWAT, I love fucking SWAT. It's awesome. My favorite show. I just watch every episode. And they were like, what, really? And I was like, yeah, I have a great, if I could do SWAT, I would just like, it would be bad. It would be awesome. Right? And so that actually got me another meeting. I got a second meeting because they were like, hey, do you want to come and say that to another guy? And I was like, yeah, I'll say that for a week. Dude, like, you keep bringing people for me to say that to, I'll say it to them. So that kind of worked. I worked on Mage. I worked on Mage after. Mage was after Dawn?
Run it down, I'll let you know.
Anyway, Mage, Dead World, There was another comic book called Dead World. I'm trying to think what else was out there. 300. We actually we pitched 300 before I did Dawn. No one wanted to do 300. So they were like, 300, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And I'd be like, okay, well, I have this thing 300. I would say that too. Like, I have this, like, it's a comic book, Frank Miller, you know, like, he's awesome. And they'd be like, Frank Miller, no, none of that's. So I'd say, okay, well, what do you guys have? That's cool. And then I would try and work that. But
We've got 200.
yeah, they had 100 at the time. No, because that's what happened with Warner Brothers. I said, oh yeah, we have this thing 300. And they're like, what is that again? And I'm like, oh, it's this, like, it's these Greek guys, and, you know, there's 300 of them because that million Persians, like, crazy, you know, underdog story. And they're like, oh, so it's a Greek thing. I go, yeah, it's Greek. It's like sword and sandals. I'm like, sword and sandals? Yeah, I guess that's a genre, yes. And they say, well, we're doing a thing right now called Troy. And I'm like, okay, Troy's awesome. And they're like, yeah, we have a guy, Brad Pitt. I don't know if you're familiar with him. I'm like, yeah, Brad Pitt's awesome. And they're like, what? And you don't have him. You just, all you have is this. Whatever, because it's I'm pointing at the comic book, by the way. Like, and I'd say, yeah, but look how awesome this is. And they're like, yeah, no, that's not a thing. So then it went onto a shelf for a while.
Tried to buy them.
He tried to buy it. See, he knows.
Zach?
Yeah.
The only thing I'll add is studio executives and producers want their directors to have a strong point of view. So if you have a handle on the material and you can express yourself with words or with actions.
Damn words again.
With a strong point of view. That's what matters.
That's a great way
That's good.
to wrap this up. Give it up. Give it up for Rick Cannon. Oh my
Thank you, by the way. Thanks again, everybody. Thank you so much. Look at everybody stayed. It's so kind. Here's the rantings of a madman. At least there was 2 rational people up here with me. Thank you. Thanks for coming. Thank you so much for coming, buddy.
We'll see a bunch of you tomorrow.
I appreciate it. Thanks again. And thanks again, Vero. You guys are amazing.